The cliffside property had been empty for so long that even the sea seemed to have forgotten its name. Waves crashed below the rocks day and night, shaping the land with slow patience. Locals passed the place without looking twice, calling it cursed, broken, or simply forgotten. Yet on a calm morning, an elderly couple stood at the edge of the narrow road, staring at the tall iron gate that led to the abandoned house. Arun held his walking stick firmly, while Mira adjusted her shawl as the cold wind brushed her face. Neither of them felt fear. What they felt was curiosity mixed with hope. Arun and Mira had lived a long life filled with work, sacrifice, and quiet endurance. Arun had spent most of his years repairing machines in small workshops, while Mira had taken care of homes not her own, cooking meals and raising children who later forgot her name. They never earned much, but they learned how to live with dignity. When the city grew too loud and their bodies too tired, they sold their small apartment and chose the only place they could afford. The cliffside property had been cheap because no one wanted it. For Arun and Mira, that did not matter. The gate creaked loudly as Arun pushed it open. Rust fell like red dust onto the ground. A narrow path curved toward the house, surrounded by wild grass and stones shaped by wind and rain. Mira walked slowly, touching the leaves of plants growing freely along the path. She smiled softly, thinking about how life always found a way to grow, even in forgotten places. Arun looked ahead, studying the house with careful eyes. It was tall, old, and scarred by time, but it still stood strong against the cliff. The front door was heavy and stiff. When Arun finally managed to open it, a cold breath of air escaped from inside, carrying the smell of salt, dust, and old wood. Light entered through broken windows, revealing covered furniture and faded walls. The house felt silent, but not empty. Mira stepped in first, her footsteps slow and respectful. She believed that places remembered the people who once lived there. She whispered softly, greeting the house as if it were an old soul waking from sleep. They spent the day exploring only a small part of the house. The stairs were weak, so they stayed on the lower floor. The kitchen was large but worn, with cracked tiles and rusted shelves. Arun imagined fixing one corner at a time. Mira imagined cooking simple meals with fresh air flowing through open windows. They spoke quietly, planning slowly, knowing they had time. At their age, rushing no longer made sense. By afternoon, their bodies grew tired. They sat on the floor near a window that faced the sea. The water below shimmered under the sun, endless and calm. Mira poured tea from a thermos, and they shared it without speaking much. The silence felt comfortable. For the first time in years, neither of them felt like they were borrowing space from the world. This place, broken as it was, belonged to them. As the sun lowered, Mira decided to clean the hallway near the bedroom. She moved carefully, lifting dust with slow movements. Her foot pressed against one floorboard that felt different. It dipped slightly, then returned to place. She stopped and pressed again. The sound was dull and hollow. Mira frowned, then called Arun. He joined her and tapped the board gently with his stick. The sound echoed differently from the rest of the floor. Arun knelt with effort and examined the board closely. It was old, but not rotten. The nails looked newer than the others nearby. He found it strange but not alarming. Old houses carried many odd signs. He told Mira they would look at it another day. They were too tired now. Mira nodded, though her curiosity lingered. She marked the spot in her mind, then helped Arun to the bedroom. That night, the wind grew strong. It pushed against the walls and made the windows rattle softly. Arun lay awake, listening to the sounds of the house. He was not afraid, but his mind wandered. He thought about all the years they had lived carefully, saving coins in jars, choosing need over want. He wondered if this house would finally give them rest or ask for more strength than they had left. Mira lay beside him, her eyes open in the dark. She listened to the sea below and remembered her childhood village, where elders spoke of hidden stories and lost fortunes. She smiled at the thought, knowing life rarely offered such surprises. Still, the hollow sound beneath the floor returned to her mind. Not as fear, but as a quiet question waiting for an answer. The next morning arrived with soft light and calmer winds. Arun woke early and stepped outside to breathe in the fresh air. The view took his breath away. The cliff dropped sharply into the endless blue below, and birds circled freely in the open sky. For a moment, He forgot the pain in his knees and the years behind him. He felt young in spirit, standing between earth and sea. Mira joined him with a small broom and began cleaning the front porch. They worked together in silence, moving slowly but with purpose. After breakfast, Arun returned to the hallway. He brought a small tool and gently lifted the loose floorboard. It came up easier than expected. Beneath it was darkness, deeper than the space between regular beams. Arun leaned closer, squinting. He saw something wooden beneath the floor. Not broken pieces, but a solid surface. A box or door. His heart beat faster, not from fear but surprise. He called Mira, and she came slowly, gripping the wall for support. When she saw what lay beneath, her eyes widened slightly. Neither of them spoke for a moment. They carefully cleared more dust and lifted a second board. A hidden wooden hatch revealed itself, sealed but strong. There were markings on it, faint and worn. Mira traced them with her fingers, feeling a strange warmth. Arun sat back, breathing slowly. He did not want excitement to cloud his thinking. Years of hard life had taught him caution. They agreed not to open it yet. Whatever lay beneath had waited for decades. It could wait one more day. They replaced the boards and covered the area again. Mira insisted they finish cleaning first. Arun agreed, though his thoughts kept returning to the hidden space. As they worked, the house felt different. Less silent. Almost aware. By evening, the sky turned orange and gold. The sea reflected the colors, making the world look unreal. Arun and Mira sat together near the window once more. Their hands rested close, not touching, but connected by years of shared struggle. Neither spoke about the hidden hatch, but both knew something important slept beneath their feet. They did not yet know that what lay hidden was worth more than imagination. They did not know that their quiet decision to buy a forgotten property had placed them at the edge of a story far larger than their own. For now, they were just an elderly couple, tired but hopeful, sitting in a broken house by the sea. And sometimes, that is how the greatest changes begin. The second morning at the Cliffside house arrived with a quiet calm that felt deeper than before. The sky was clear, and the sea below moved slowly, as if watching the house with interest. Arun woke early again, his body stiff but his mind alert. The memory of the hidden hatch beneath the floor had not left him. It stayed with him like an unanswered question. He sat at the edge of the bed for a long moment, reminding himself to breathe slowly and think clearly. Mira woke a little later and found Arun sitting near the window, staring toward the hallway. She did not ask him what he was thinking, because she already knew. They had lived together for many years, and silence had become a shared language. She prepared a simple breakfast using the few supplies they had brought. As they ate, they spoke about small things, the weather, the birds, and the repairs they needed to do. Neither mentioned the hatch, but both felt its presence. After breakfast, Mira suggested they clean the storage room near the back of the house. Arun agreed. He believed that finishing simple tasks first would help keep their minds steady. The storage room was dark and filled with old boxes, broken chairs, and tools covered in rust. Sunlight entered through a narrow window, cutting through the dust. Mira worked slowly, sorting what could be used and what needed to be thrown away. Arun focused on moving lighter items, careful not to strain himself. As they cleaned, Mira noticed something unusual. Several old notebooks were stacked inside a metal box, hidden behind a broken cabinet. She opened one carefully. The pages were yellowed but still readable. They appeared to be records, written neatly, listing dates, numbers, and locations. Mira did not fully understand them, but she sensed their importance. She showed them to Arun, who adjusted his glasses and studied the writing closely. Arun realized that the notebooks were detailed financial records from many years ago. The names written inside were unfamiliar, but the numbers were large. Much larger than anything Arun had ever dealt with. He felt a quiet shock but did not allow excitement to take over. Instead, he closed the notebook gently and placed it back in the box. He told Mira that these records might be connected to the hidden space beneath the floor. Mira nodded, her expression thoughtful. They decided it was time to open the hatch. Not out of greed or thrill, but out of responsibility. Whatever was hidden there had been left behind for a reason. It was part of the house now, and the house belonged to them. They moved back to the hallway together. Arun carefully removed the loose boards again, revealing the wooden hatch. This time, they did not hesitate. The hatch was heavier than expected. Arun used his tools to lift it slowly, while Mira held a flashlight to guide him. When it finally opened, a narrow staircase appeared, leading downward into darkness. The air that rose from below was cool and dry. It did not smell rotten or dangerous, only old. Arun took a deep breath and looked at Mira. She nodded calmly. They descended slowly, one step at a time. The staircase led to a small underground room carved into the rock beneath the house. The walls were solid and smooth, reinforced carefully. The flashlight revealed metal shelves lining the room. On those shelves were sealed containers, wooden crates, and locked cases. Arun felt his heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. They approached the nearest crate. Arun opened it carefully. Inside were stacks of neatly packed bundles, wrapped in protective material. Mira leaned closer, her eyes widening as she realized what she was seeing. It was wealth beyond anything they had ever imagined. The kind of wealth that changed nations, not just lives. Arun slowly closed the crate again, his hands trembling slightly. For several minutes, they sat on the stone floor in silence. The sound of the sea above seemed distant now. Mira was the first to speak. She asked who the wealth belonged to and why it had been hidden. Arun shook his head. He did not know. But he knew one thing for certain. This was not a blessing to be taken lightly. They carefully explored the rest of the room. More crates, more sealed cases, all carefully organized. Some documents were stored in waterproof containers, listing transfers, holdings, and values. Arun calculated roughly and realized the total amount reached nearly 300 million. The number felt unreal. It made his chest feel tight. They returned upstairs before nightfall. Neither of them spoke much. The house felt heavier now. Not with fear, but with responsibility. Mira prepared dinner, though neither of them ate much. Their thoughts moved in slow circles, returning again and again to the hidden room below. That night, sleep did not come easily. Arun worried about the attention such a discovery could bring. He worried about safety, about trust, about making the right decision. Mira lay awake thinking about the many years they had struggled while others lived with excess. She did not feel anger. She felt clarity. The next morning, Mira spoke first. She told Arun that the wealth did not belong to them personally, even if it was now under their roof. She believed it was meant to be used wisely, not consumed. Arun listened carefully. He agreed. They had lived long enough to know that money alone never created peace. They decided to take control of the property fully. Not to sell it, not to abandon it, but to protect it. Arun contacted a trusted legal advisor from the city, someone he had known for years. He did not explain everything at once. He simply asked for guidance on how to handle a sensitive discovery legally and safely. The advisor agreed to visit. As days passed, Arun and Mira worked quietly. They repaired locks, strengthened doors, and restored parts of the house. They did not tell anyone about the hidden room. To the village, they were just an elderly couple fixing up an old home. The house slowly began to change. Broken windows were repaired. The garden near the cliff was cleared. Life returned gently. When the advisor finally arrived, Arun showed him the records first. The man was stunned but remained professional. After reviewing the documents and visiting the hidden room, he confirmed the truth. The wealth had been left untouched due to a legal failure many years ago. The original owner had disappeared, leaving no clear heirs. Legally, the property and everything beneath it now belonged to Arun and Mira. The confirmation did not bring joy. It brought silence. Arun and Mira sat together after the advisor left, holding hands tightly. They knew their lives would never be the same. But they also knew who they were. They were not young dreamers chasing luxury. They were survivors who understood value. As the sun set over the sea, Mira looked at the house and smiled softly. The Cliffside property was no longer abandoned. It was alive again. And under their careful control, the hidden wealth would soon begin a journey far beyond the walls of that quiet house. After the advisor left the Cliffside house, silence returned, but it was no longer the same silence as before. It carried weight and meaning. Arun and Mira sat together near the window facing the sea, watching the waves roll endlessly against the rocks. The discovery beneath their home had changed the air around them. Not with excitement, but with purpose. They both understood that life had placed something serious in their care. The days that followed were slow and thoughtful. Arun spent hours reading the old records again and again, trying to understand the full picture. Mira focused on restoring the house, cleaning every corner as if preparing it for a future she could not yet see clearly. They did not speak much about the wealth, but it stayed with them in every quiet moment. It was like a guest who never slept. News traveled fast in small places, but no one suspected anything unusual. Villagers saw only an elderly couple fixing an old home with patience and care. Arun repaired broken fences, and Mira planted small flowers near the edge of the cliff. Their simple routines protected their secret better than any lock ever could. Ordinary behavior became their shield. One afternoon, Arun noticed a young boy standing near the gate, watching him work. The boy looked thin and curious, his clothes worn from use. Arun smiled and asked him if he needed help. The boy shook his head and said he only wanted to see the house because people said it was finally alive again. Arun felt something stir inside him. He invited the boy to sit and gave him water. They spoke briefly, and Arun learned that the boy's father worked long hours and his mother was often sick. That evening, Arun told Mira about the boy. Mira listened carefully, her eyes soft. She reminded Arun of the many children she had cared for during her working years. She said quietly that wealth had already begun knocking on their door, not from below the floor, but from the lives around them. Arun nodded. He understood what she meant. They decided to begin planning. Not spending, not giving, but planning. Arun contacted the advisor again and asked for help setting up legal structures to protect the wealth while deciding its purpose. Everything had to be done slowly and carefully. They did not want attention, and they did not want mistakes. The advisor agreed and suggested ways to remain private while preparing long-term actions. Meanwhile, Mira began visiting the village more often. She listened to people's stories without asking questions. She learned about families struggling with medical costs, children leaving school early, and elders living alone. She did not promise anything. She simply listened. Each story settled quietly in her heart, forming a map of need. At night, Arun and Mira talked more than they had in years. They remembered their own struggles, the times they had borrowed money, the nights they worried about tomorrow. They spoke about dignity and fairness. Arun said wealth should not control the people who held it. Mira said it should move like water, reaching dry places gently. Together, they shaped an idea that felt right. The hidden room beneath the house remained sealed most days. Arun checked it weekly, ensuring everything stayed safe. He treated it like a responsibility rather than a treasure. Mira rarely went down there. She said her focus was above ground, where people lived and breathed. Arun respected that. Each of them carried a different part of the weight. As weeks passed, changes began quietly. A local school received anonymous funding to repair its roof. A medical clinic received new equipment without explanation. Small improvements appeared around the village, subtle but meaningful. People talked about good luck and unexpected help. No one spoke of the Cliffside house. Arun and Mira watched these changes with calm satisfaction. They did not seek gratitude or recognition. Their joy came from seeing relief replace worry on familiar faces. For the first time in their lives, they were not receivers of kindness but quiet providers. The balance felt right. One evening, the young boy returned to the gate. This time, he brought his mother. She thanked Arun and Mira for helping the school and clinic, even though she did not know they were responsible. She simply said the village felt lighter somehow. Mira smiled and offered tea. They sat together, speaking of small things, while the sea listened below. That night, Mira told Arun that the house no longer felt heavy. Arun agreed. The wealth beneath them had begun to lose its weight because it was no longer trapped. It was moving, slowly and carefully, just as they intended. Yet, not everything felt settled. Arun noticed unfamiliar cars passing by the cliff road more often. He did not panic, but he stayed alert. He informed the advisor, who reassured him that curiosity alone did not mean danger. Still, Arun took extra steps to ensure privacy. Simple actions, quiet adjustments. Mira sensed Arun's concern and reminded him that fear should not guide their choices. She believed honesty within their actions would protect them better than secrecy driven by worry. Arun trusted her wisdom. Together, they remained steady. As autumn approached, the Cliffside house transformed. Repairs were complete, and warmth filled its rooms. The property that once stood abandoned now looked welcoming and alive. Birds nested nearby, and plants grew strong along the path. The house had become part of the land again. One afternoon, Arun stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the horizon. He felt a deep sense of peace. He knew their lives were nearing their later chapters, but those chapters now held meaning beyond survival. Mira joined him, resting her hand gently on his arm. They did not speak. They did not need to. The wealth beneath their feet no longer felt like a burden or a miracle. It felt like a tool, placed in their hands at the right time. They had not chased it. They had simply answered when life called. And as the sun dipped into the sea, casting golden light across the cliffside, Arun and Mira stood quietly together. They knew there was still more to do. More choices to make. More care required. But they were ready. The abandoned property had given them more than security. It had given them purpose. And in that purpose, they found a kind of richness they had never known before. The final months at the Cliffside house moved gently, like the tide below that never rushed yet never stopped. Arun and Mira had settled into a rhythm that felt natural, as if the house had shaped itself around them. Mornings began with quiet tea by the window and evenings ended with shared silence under the sound of waves. The great responsibility they carried no longer pressed heavily on their hearts. It had become part of who they were. The careful plans they had started slowly reached deeper into the lives around them. Through trusted channels and quiet arrangements, support flowed where it was most needed. Families found help without being asked to feel small. Elders received care without losing respect. Children returned to school with books in their hands and hope in their eyes. No names were attached to these changes. The village spoke of fortune and timing, never suspecting the truth. Arun remained cautious but calm. He continued working closely with advisors who respected privacy and patience. Everything was done with care, following rules and fairness. Mira reminded him often that doing good also meant doing things the right way. Together, they ensured that the wealth beneath the house would never become a source of harm or conflict. One afternoon, a strong storm rolled in from the sea. Wind struck the cliffside with force, and rain washed over the land. Arun secured the windows while Mira lit a lamp inside. As thunder echoed, they sat together and spoke about their past. Arun talked about his youth, the long hours, and the dreams he had quietly set aside. Mira spoke of the many homes she had served, the children she had loved and then left behind. There was no regret in their voices. Only understanding. The storm passed by morning, leaving the world clean and bright. The house stood firm, stronger than before. Arun looked at the structure with pride. The abandoned property had not only survived time but had found purpose again. In saving it, they had saved something within themselves as well. As the year turned, Arun's health began to slow him further. He did not complain, but Mira noticed. She encouraged rest, and he listened. They spent more time sitting together, watching the sea, talking less but feeling more. Mira knew time was precious. She also knew they had done what they were meant to do. They began preparing for the future beyond themselves. With guidance, they created long-term plans so that the wealth would continue to serve even after they were gone. Trusts were formed with clear values. Education, care, and opportunity became the pillars of everything they built. Arun insisted on simplicity. Mira insisted on kindness. Both were written into every plan. One quiet evening, the young boy who had first visited the house returned, taller now and more confident. He brought news that he had been accepted into a school program he never thought possible. He thanked Arun and Mira for always listening to him, even when they gave him no promises. Mira smiled and told him listening was sometimes the greatest gift. Arun nodded, feeling a quiet joy settle in his chest. The boy left, and the house returned to stillness. Arun and Mira sat together, holding hands. They did not speak of the wealth or the future. They spoke of the present. Of the sound of the sea. Of the warmth of the lamp. of the peace they felt. Months later, on a calm morning, Arun did not wake. His passing was gentle, like falling asleep after a long journey. Meera sat beside him, holding his hand, her heart heavy but calm. She did not cry loudly. She thanked him for the life they shared and for the choices they made together. The village gathered quietly to honor Arun. They spoke of him as a kind man, a steady presence, someone who listened more than he spoke. No one mentioned wealth. No one needed to. His legacy was already woven into their lives. Meera returned to the Cliffside house alone, but she did not feel lonely. Arun's presence lived in every repaired wall, every planted flower, every decision made with care. She continued their work, guided by the plans they had created together. She trusted the people they had chosen. She trusted the future they had shaped. Years passed, and the house became known as a place of calm. People spoke of it with respect. The village grew stronger, quieter, more hopeful. Support continued, steady and unseen. The Cliffside property remained private, protected, and purposeful. When Meera's time finally came, it was peaceful. She left the world knowing that the wealth once hidden beneath the floor had become something far greater than money. It had become opportunity, dignity, and hope. The abandoned Cliffside property never returned to silence. Even after Arun and Meera were gone, its influence remained. The waves still crashed below, the wind still whispered through open windows, but now those sounds carried stories of kindness and quiet strength. What began as a forgotten house with a hidden secret ended as a place where lives were changed without noise or praise. Arun and Meera never sought to control the world. They simply took responsibility for what life placed in their care. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything.